What would you do if the man who finally learned to love you turned out to be the reason your father lost everything? Juliet Monroe thought she was just signing a contract 1 year, one marriage, no emotions. But somewhere between cold dinners and quiet sacrifices, love found a way in. Now, just when she's ready to choose him for real, a secret buried years ago resurfaces, and it threatens to break everything they've rebuilt. Stay with us, because this story proves that love isn't about how it starts, it's about how it survives the truth. Juliet Monroe still remembered the summer heat clinging to her skin like a second layer. She was 8, barefoot, giggling, with mud on her knees and sun in her hair. That was the summer everything changed, the summer she stopped being just a little girl and became someone both boys wanted to claim. Ethan Carter was the kind one, always smiling, always offering the better half of anything, his sandwich, his swing, even the last popsicle from Mrs. Harlow's corner store. He was the first person to hold her hand and tell her freckles looked like stars on brown sugar. But Sebastian Vance was different. At 12, he was all sharp edges and silent intensity. He didn't ask for things, he took them. He didn't smile often, but when he did, it felt like the whole world paused to watch. That summer, Juliet had built a tiny house out of mud by the lake, complete with stick fences and leaves for a roof. She crouched beside it, proudly patting down the walls, telling Ethan, "One day, I'll live in a house like this, quiet, small, safe." Ethan beamed. "Can I visit?" Before she could answer, Sebastian appeared out of nowhere and crushed the mud house with a rock. Juliet froze. Her lips parted. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You're not going anywhere," Sebastian said, voice firm, eyes wild. "You live in my castle. I built it for you. That's final." Ethan leapt to her defense. "Seb, stop it. She's crying." But one glare from Sebastian was enough to silence him. Juliet sobbed louder. Years later, she would look back at that moment, the crushed mud house, the fierce look in Sebastian's eyes, the silence from Ethan, and realize that was the day possession was born. They grew up, but the patterns didn't change. Ethan stayed close, thoughtful, steady, always watching from the sidelines. He went to photography school, traveled for a bit, but he always came back, always checked in on her, never pushed, never pulled. Sebastian, on the other hand, became a Vance heir to an empire, raised in suits and strategies. But every time he returned to Charleston, he still called her kiddo. Still walked into her life like he owned it. And somehow, he did. By the time she turned 25, Juliet was working 2 jobs, helping her aunt cover bills, and had long buried any dreams of a small, quiet house. So when Sebastian showed up at her door in a tailored coat and that same unreadable expression, offering a contract marriage for 1 year, she thought she'd finally gone insane. "You'll be my wife on paper," he said. "I'll take care of your debts. You'll live comfortably. You'll never have to want for anything again." She asked one question. "Why me?" His answer came too quickly. "Because I trust you." And just like that, the mud house became marble, the girl became a wife, and the boy who crushed her dreams became the man who signed her name next to his. But the past never forgets, and neither did Ethan. Now, years after that summer, the 3 of them found themselves tangled in a triangle no one could undo. Ethan was still the soft voice of reason, still waiting with open hands. Sebastian was still intense, still possessive, still unable to let go of the girl he never truly asked for, only took. And Juliet? She had changed. She was no longer the girl who cried over a broken mud house. She was now a woman deciding which man, if any, deserved to build one with her again. The waves at Costa del Beach rolled in rhythm, their hush-hush cadence almost peaceful. But peace had no place in the air between Sebastian Vance and Ethan Carter. Juliet Monroe sat in the front seat of Sebastian's black convertible, arms crossed, sunglasses shielding her eyes. She hadn't wanted to come, not really, but the moment Ethan had suggested the beach and Sebastian had insisted on driving, she knew she was once again caught in the silent tug-of-war between two men who refused to name their war. Peter, no. Ethan had tugged her hand first. "Come on, kiddo," he'd said with that familiar smirk. But before she could slide into the back seat with him, Sebastian's hand closed around her wrist, gently but firmly. "She's riding shotgun," he said without looking at Ethan. "Take your own car." Ethan had only shrugged. "Not polluting the environment when we're headed to the same place, buddy." Then, without waiting for permission, he jumped in the back. Sebastian's jaw ticked. Juliet turned up the music. The drive was unbearable, Ethan singing along to old pop songs just to annoy Sebastian, and Sebastian speeding down empty roads like he was racing away from something neither of them could name. When they arrived at the beach, the trio spilled out onto the sand like the past had followed them there. "I thought we could play some volleyball," Sebastian said, already scanning for an open court. Ethan whooped like a child. "That's what I'm talking about!" Juliet stayed silent. She knew how this went. The two of them would play. They'd taunt, compete, get sweaty, and then one would win. And she'd be the prize. Again. Sure enough, when they approached the court, Ethan grabbed her hand. "You're on my team, Sia." Sebastian's hand was instantly there again. "She's my wife." "She's with me." Juliet froze. Did he just say my wife? Like a claim at auction? Ethan scoffed. "Wow, Vance! You need her just to beat me?" "I don't need anyone to beat you." "Then bet on it." Sebastian turned slowly. "What do I get when I win?" Ethan grinned and glanced at Juliet. Her stomach dropped. "Don't you dare," she warned. But it was too late. "I win. I get to spend the day with her." "Alone," Ethan said. Juliet spun around. "I'm not an object you toss between yourselves like a damn volleyball." Sebastian's voice was cold, clipped. "It's just a game." "No, it's not," she snapped. "It's never just a game with you two." And yet, somehow, she still found herself sitting on the sidelines, arms wrapped around her knees as the boys battled it out like teenagers with something to prove. The match was tight. Every spike felt like a challenge, every block a threat, and Juliet felt invisible. She watched the final point, or, more accurately, watched the clouds above while pretending she wasn't invested, only to be pulled back into their drama when Sebastian shouted, "Point! Game!" and Ethan fired back, "Out! That was clearly out!" Both turned to her. "I wasn't watching," she lied flatly. "She's scared to choose," Ethan mocked. "She knows if she picks you, she's stuck with that scowl all day." "Enough!" Sebastian snapped. "Accept the loss like a man." "Oh, you mean like how you accepted it when she kissed me at prom?" Juliet's head snapped around. That was low. That was dirty. Sebastian's fists clenched. The muscles in his neck twitched. Juliet stepped between them, snatching the volleyball. "I said enough." Her voice cracked like a whip. Both men froze. "I didn't come here to watch a testosterone tantrum," she said, hurling the ball. It bounced off the head of a bald man sunbathing nearby. He stood, furious. Juliet's stomach flipped. But before the man could step toward her, Sebastian and Ethan moved as one, stepping in front of her like guards before a queen. The stranger took one look at their stances and retreated, muttering curses under his breath. Juliet peeked between their shoulders. Two men, one girl. And yet, she felt so alone. She smiled sheepishly. They didn't smile back. She ran. They chased, and when she tripped in the sand, Sebastian caught her before she hit the ground. His arms wrapped around her like they always had, fiercely, protectively. Later, as the sun began to slip behind the horizon and the light turned golden, Juliet sat beside him on a blanket. He laughed at something she said, a real laugh. Rare, beautiful, disarming. "You never laugh like that," she whispered, brushing her pinky against his. He pulled away at first, then slowly, hesitantly, intertwined his pinky with hers. "Jet skiing?" he offered, like an apology. She beamed. "Absolutely." They soared across the water, salt and spray kissing their skin. She leaned into him, her hair whipping into his face, her laughter echoing against the waves. And for a fleeting moment, it almost felt like it was just the two of them, untouched by the past, untouched by Ethan, untouched by the unspoken. But beneath the surface of joy was something else. A bruise. A whisper, a truth. She wasn't a trophy. She wasn't his. And she wasn't done fighting for her own place between two men who had spent a lifetime tugging at her arms, but never asking what she truly wanted. The night after their beach trip, Juliette Monroe collapsed onto the villa's oversized couch, muscles sore and spirit heavier than she cared to admit. Sebastian had helped her off the jet ski, wrapped her in a towel like she might disappear if he didn't hold on tightly enough, and carried her back to the car with silent resolve. He hadn't said it aloud, but she could feel it in the way he looked at her, like she had slipped just out of reach, and he was trying to pretend he wasn't terrified of losing her. In the dim light of their bedroom, Juliette heard Sebastian murmuring to himself as he showered. She didn't ask what he was saying. She didn't want to know. She fell asleep, still in her swimsuit, face turned to the window where the moonlight spilled onto the tiles. And then it came. The dream was vivid, too vivid. She was 8 again, wearing that red flowered sundress with the torn hem, barefoot in the soft dirt beside the lake. In her small hands was a mound of mud she had shaped into a tiny house. "This is for when my dad comes back," young Juliette said cheerfully to no one in particular. "He'll build us something just like this." But someone was watching. 12-year-old Sebastian Vance. He towered over her, arms crossed, lips curled downward. "You're not going anywhere." Juliette turned. "But Mama says." "I don't care what your Mama says." She blinked, confused, still smiling. "You can visit my house. I'll make cookies." "I built you a castle," Sebastian snapped. "You belong there, with me. But I like my house." He didn't speak. Instead, he picked up a rock and smashed her mud house into a wet, crumbling mess. Juliette gasped. "Sebastian!" Tears welled in her younger self's eyes as she crouched beside the ruins. She had spent 30 minutes perfecting the walls. The tiny stick fence now lay broken. The leaf roof had been tossed aside. "I'll destroy anything that takes you away from me," he said coldly. "Even this!" Ethan Carter's voice rang out nearby. "Stop it, Richie!" he shouted, using the nickname only he dared say. Sebastian's glare was like a knife. Ethan flinched but stood firm. Young Juliette sobbed harder, her small hands covered in broken mud. "You'll regret this," she cried. "One day, I'll leave you. You'll see." Sebastian shook with rage. "No!" Sebastian Vance bolted upright in bed, sweat dripping down his back, breathing like he'd just run a marathon. His chest rose and fell with ragged rhythm. The sheets tangled around his legs, like they were trying to hold him down. Just a dream, he told himself. Just a memory warped by time, but it wasn't just a dream. It was a warning. One he had ignored for years. His hand reached instinctively toward the other side of the bed. Cold sheets. His heart stuttered. "Juliette?" No answer. He pushed himself out of bed, padded across the cool floor, and knocked on the bathroom door. Nothing. He opened it. Empty. Panic began to crawl up his spine, then movement outside. He moved to the window and saw her. Juliette in a black bikini, swimming alone in the moonlit pool. Her skin glistened. Her laugh echoed faintly through the night air. She looked free, too free. Sebastian stormed out of the room. Downstairs, Trevor, the new villa staff member, stepped into his path, cheerful. "Good morning, sir. Breakfast is—" I'll have it with Juliet. Oh. She's in the pool. Sebastian's eyes sharpened. You saw her? Trevor faltered. She asked for eggs. I didn't think. I don't want to see you again today, Sebastian growled. Clear the house. Trevor disappeared before another word could be spoken. When Sebastian reached the pool, Juliet had just surfaced, water cascading down her back. She smiled as she turned, but the smile faded when she saw his face. What? She asked, brushing hair from her eyes. Get out of the pool, he said, too harshly. Excuse me. I said, get out. Juliet raised an eyebrow. Are you seriously ordering me around because I'm swimming in your pool? My pool? My house? My. Finish that sentence, she challenged. Sebastian's throat worked, but he said nothing. I'm not your possession, Sebastian. I'm your wife, contract or not. And you're swimming half-naked with staff around. They're gone, she said flatly. You sent them away, didn't you? He didn't answer. She crossed her arms. You really haven't changed. That hurt more than he expected. I built this life to keep you safe. You built a prison, she whispered. His jaw clenched. Then, before he could stop himself, he dove into the pool. The water exploded around them as he surfaced close, far too close. She gasped, his breath brushing her ear. He pulled her against him. Why do you always run? Because you don't let me breathe. But you always come back, he murmured. She hesitated. Because a part of me still wants to believe you're not that boy anymore. He swallowed hard. She stared into his eyes. Do you know what it felt like to watch you destroy what I built? Even back then. I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd forget me. You never asked me what I wanted, she said softly. Then I'm asking now, he whispered. What do you want, Juliet? She looked at him. Really looked. And in that moment she didn't know the answer. The invitation came in a cream envelope, thick with wealth and wrapped in silence. Sebastian Vance didn't ask Juliet Monroe if she wanted to go to the Maddox Foundation gala. He simply appeared in her dressing room while she was folding laundry and said, Get ready, you're coming with me tonight. She blinked up at him, holding a t-shirt in her hands. To wear? He hesitated. It's important, for business. And I need you with me. She raised an eyebrow. You need me, or you want to show me off? His jaw flexed, and that told her everything. Still, she didn't argue. Not right away. 2 hours later, Juliet stepped out in a champagne silk gown, her hair swept up, pearls at her neck understated, classic, powerful. Sebastian looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You're beautiful, he said quietly. She softened just for a moment before masking it with a smirk. I know. They rode in silence. Sebastian stared out the window, unusually tense. What's wrong? She asked, watching his hands clench and unclench. Dominic Whitmore, he finally said. Juliet frowned. That name sounds familiar. Sebastian's voice dropped. He's the one man I never want in the same room with you. Why? Because he ruins things, not with fire, with whispers. The gala was everything Juliet expected. Chandeliers dripping with diamonds, violins humming in the background, women in gowns that cost more than her annual salary before marriage. Sebastian kept her close, his hand on the small of her back like a security detail. He introduced her to CEOs, board members, political donors. His voice was low, his smile never reached his eyes. She smiled, nodded, played the part of the elegant wife. But inside, she grew restless. She didn't belong here. Not in this world of silent deals and shark smiles. I need air, she whispered. He hesitated. Stay near. She nodded and slipped toward the hallway. Just as she reached the edge of the ballroom, a man bumped into a waiter, causing a tray of wine glasses to crash and one full glass splash across her thigh. Juliet gasped. Seriously? A voice beside her, rich, smooth, amused. Looks like someone got marked. She turned, frowning. The man was tall, dark-haired, impeccably dressed, late 30s maybe, and his eyes grey and unreadable flicked to the stain on her gown, then back to her face. "Allow me," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a white silk handkerchief. Juliet backed away. "It's fine." "I insist," he replied, stepping forward with an easy grace that screamed danger. She waved him off. "I'll find the washroom." "I can show you," he offered. "No need." "I don't bite," he said with a smirk. Juliet narrowed her eyes. But with Sebastian nowhere in sight, and the wine starting to soak cold into her skin, she gave in. He led her through a quiet corridor, stopping outside the powder room. As she reached for the door, she caught his eyes watching her reflection in the mirror. "You know," he said softly, "you don't seem like the usual Vance accessory." Juliet froze. She turned slowly. "Excuse me." He smiled like a man who already knew too much. "I'm Dominic Whitmore." Her blood turned cold. Of course he was. "I've heard so much about you," he continued, "and now I see why Sebastian keeps you so close." She stiffened. "We're married." "For now," he said, casually leaning on the doorframe. "But proximity doesn't mean permanence." Before Juliet could respond, a shadow cut across the doorway. A hand closed around her waist. "Sebastian!" He pulled her back, standing squarely between her and Dominic. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, his tone a blade. Dominic only smiled. "Still so territorial, Vance, even after all these years." Juliet felt Sebastian's grip tighten. "She's not for conversation," Sebastian snapped. Juliet stepped forward. "I can speak for myself." Dominic's eyes twinkled. "Yes, I imagine you can." "Come," Sebastian said through gritted teeth. "Now." She followed, but not before casting one last look at Dominic. He winked, and she knew he wasn't done. Back in the car, Sebastian's silence was deafening. She watched him from the passenger seat, his jaw tense, eyes hard on the road. "Sebastian." "Nothing." "You can't treat me like an object, not in public." "Not in private." His voice was low, angry. "He's dangerous. To you, not to me." "That's where you're wrong," he said, pulling over suddenly on a quiet street. "He targets what I love." She froze. The words hung between them. "What you love," she echoed. He exhaled hard, leaned his head back. "I never wanted this," he said. "Not like this. Not to drag you into old wars." Juliet stared at him. "Then why did you bring me here?" "Because the second I saw him in that room, I knew he'd find you eventually. And I couldn't stand the idea of him getting to you without me there. You don't own me, Sebastian." "No. But I lost you once. I don't think I can survive it again." She was silent. Then, quietly, "I didn't know I mattered that much." His eyes met hers. "You always have." Juliet Monroe hadn't expected to stay at Sebastian's villa for 6 months. When they first signed the contract, marriage business terms, boundaries, timelines, she packed like it was a weekend retreat. A few dresses, a coat, toiletries, and her skincare routine. That was it. What she didn't pack was sanitary pads. So when she woke up cramping on a sleepy Thursday morning and opened the last drawer in the bathroom, she realized with a sinking feeling she had nothing. No staff, no tampons, no plan. And Sebastian Vance, her brilliant, powerful, emotionally complicated husband, was working 3 doors down, probably drafting a deal that would alter the stock market. He had no idea. Juliet shuffled to the door in a hoodie, barefoot, still clutching her abdomen. She hesitated before knocking. 3 soft taps, no answer. Then a 4th firmer. Sebastian's voice floated from inside. Unless the villa's on fire, I'm in a meeting. Juliet pushed the door open anyway. We have a problem. He turned from his laptop, frowning. What happened? She stepped in fully, arms folded. I need you to go to the pharmacy. His brow lifted. What? Why? She sighed. I need pads. He blinked. Like bandages? Her jaw dropped. Seriously? He stared blankly for a beat, then realization hit like a train. Oh. Those. Yes, those. He swiveled back to his desk. Order them online. I tried. Deliveries are delayed. Apparently your villa is too remote. He sighed again, clearly annoyed. Then use whatever you used last time. Juliet's voice chilled. I'm telling you I have nothing. Sebastian stared at her, frustrated. So what do you expect me to do? Drop everything and run to the drugstore? Yes, she said. Exactly that. For someone who could negotiate billion-dollar acquisitions without flinching, Sebastian looked deeply rattled. You're asking me, he said slowly, to walk into a store and buy feminine products? Yes. And not discreetly order them through my assistant? Or have a female staffer? You fired the staff yesterday, remember? He stood, agitated. Juliet, I can't leave work for this. It's not essential, she cut in sharply. He paused. That was a mistake. Her eyes darkened. You think your emails are more important than my body? Sebastian exhaled. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you meant. You could have packed better. Juliet's jaw clenched. Excuse me. You knew you were coming here. Why not plan for this? She took a step forward, voice shaking. Because I didn't expect to be trapped in your villa for half a year. Because I didn't think I'd have to justify needing basic hygiene to a man I supposedly married. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Fine. Tampons? No. What do you mean, no? I don't use them. I don't feel comfortable. His eyes flickered with disbelief. Are you serious? Now she was furious. What? Am I less of a woman because I don't stick cotton inside myself? Sebastian threw his hands in the air. God, this is exhausting. No, she snapped. I'm exhausted. From dealing with your ignorance, your control, your constant dismissiveness. They stared at each other, breathing hard. Finally, he broke. I'll go. Juliet blinked. You will? But you're coming with me. She gaped. Why? Because I have never walked into a store and bought that stuff before. I need you to point at what you want. I'm not guessing. She rolled her eyes. You're terrified of a pad aisle? No, he said. I'm terrified of failing you in public. That silenced her for a second. Then she muttered, Fine. But we're buying chips too. Sebastian frowned. What does that have to do with? I'm bloated, angry, and I want spicy chips. That's what it has to do with. He hesitated. I thought girls craved chocolate. She gave him a look that could melt steel. I'm not girls. I'm me. He nodded slowly. Spicy chips. Got it. They drove to the nearest store in awkward silence. Halfway there, Juliet realized she wasn't even wearing shoes. She didn't care. Sebastian parked the car with a sigh of dread. I'm sending the bodyguards, he muttered. No, Juliet snapped. This isn't a Black Ops mission. It's tampons and tortilla chips. But someone might recognize me. Then walk faster. Inside the store, Sebastian followed her like a lost puppy. When they reached the aisle, he froze. Rows and rows, brands and colors. Ultra-thin. Overnight. Wings. No wings. He blinked. Is there a starter pack? Juliet burst out laughing for the first time all day. No, she said, but thank you for trying. She picked a pack, and tossed it into the cart, then added 2 more, then 3. Sebastian stared. That many? She shrugged. So I never have to explain this again. Without a word, he added 3 boxes of condoms into the cart. Juliet raised an eyebrow. Planning ahead, are we? My stock was running low, he said casually. Classy. In the chips aisle, she grabbed the biggest bag she could find. Sweet, spicy chili. Sebastian wrinkled his nose. Those are radioactive. They're heaven, she said, hugging the bag. Back in the car, she opened it with a dramatic crunch. He glanced over. Would it kill you to chew like a human? Juliet broke off a chip, snapped it in half. Then again. She held out 1/8 of a chip. Here, be civilized. He accepted it, expression flat. You're an actual menace. She beamed. And yet, you married me. Back home, Sebastian dropped all the shopping bags onto the kitchen counter. His white shirt was wrinkled. His hair was tousled. He looked nothing like the billion-dollar executive. Juliet stood beside him, leaning against the fridge, chip bag still open. You survived, she said. Barely. I'm proud of you. He raised a brow. Really? She smiled. Really? Then she leaned over, kissed his cheek, and whispered, Next time, you're going solo. Sebastian smirked. Only if you pack better. Juliet rolled her eyes. But in that messy kitchen, surrounded by neon snack wrappers and awkwardly bought hygiene supplies, something shifted. For the first time, he hadn't tried to fix her. He'd just shown up. And somehow, that meant more than flowers ever could. The Vance car glided to a halt in front of the Grand Riviera Hotel, a glass and marble giant overlooking the city skyline. Sebastian stepped out first, his tuxedo crisp, expression unreadable. He held the door open for Juliet, who emerged in a navy blue gown that shimmered under the entrance lights. She smoothed the fabric at her hips, suddenly aware of how low the neckline dipped. Sebastian's eyes lingered. You look. His voice faltered, then steadied. Perfect. Juliet gave a small smile. Careful. If you keep complimenting me, I might start thinking this marriage isn't just a contract. He didn't reply, not with words. But his hand found her back low, possessive, and guided her into the glittering ballroom. Inside, the gala buzzed with champagne laughter and designer cologne. Billionaires, board members, politicians. The air reeked of polished ambition. Juliet played her part well, poised, gracious, subtly charming. She let Sebastian lead the conversations, smiling when necessary, keeping her distance from anything that smelled like power games. But halfway through the evening, as Sebastian stepped aside to speak with an oil magnate, Juliet found herself alone near the bar, stirring her untouched glass of rosé. See, she froze. Only a handful of people had ever called her that, a childhood nickname, short for Juliet's middle name, Shiana. She turned slowly. There he was, Dominic Whitmore. Wearing a midnight suit, hair slightly tousled, glass of whiskey in hand, and that smile, the kind that was charming if you didn't know better. Deadly if you did. I thought it was you, he said, stepping closer. Juliet offered a polite nod. Mr. Whitmore. Dominic, he corrected smoothly. Always Dominic to you. She stiffened. I didn't know you'd be here. Neither did Sebastian, I'm sure. He wouldn't have brought you if he'd known. She sipped her wine. Maybe he trusts me. Dominic leaned in slightly. Does he? Juliet didn't flinch. What do you want? He shrugged. Nothing dramatic? Just a conversation? Old friends, you know, before you were Mrs. Contract Wife. That's none of your business. Everything about you, he said softly, is my business. Her skin prickled. Juliet! Sebastian's voice was cold, sharp. He appeared beside her in an instant, slipping a firm arm around her waist. Dominic's eyes twinkled. Ah, the lion himself. Sebastian's jaw was granite. Walk away. Dominic smiled, unbothered. Easy, Vance. No need to make a scene in front of all these generous donors. Sebastian didn't budge. His grip on Juliet tightened. Interesting tactic, Dominic mused. You bring her here to parade her as your trophy, and then glare at anyone who dares look. She's not a trophy, Sebastian snapped. Could have fooled me. You guard her like she's gold you haven't insured yet. Juliet stepped between them. That's enough, both of you. Dominic raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course, I wouldn't want to upset your keeper. She turned to him. I'm not kept. And I'm not interested. Dominic gave a slight bow. Pity. You could have been more than a headline. And then he walked away, vanishing into the sea of satin and silk. Back in the car, silence reigned. Juliet looked out the window, arms folded. You shouldn't have followed me, she said quietly. Sebastian's hands tightened on the wheel. I warned you about him. I wasn't in danger. I had it under control. Dominic Whitmore doesn't play fair, Juliet. Neither do you, she muttered. His head snapped toward her. What's that supposed to mean? She met his gaze. You parade me around like property. You control every inch of our lives. You keep calling this protection, but it feels a lot like possession. Sebastian's eyes darkened. I did this to keep you safe. No, she said. You did this to keep me yours. Silence. Then, you're not denying it. I don't need to, she said, because deep down, you know I'm right. He parked the car abruptly on the side of a quiet street. The city lights glimmered in the distance. I know I'm not a perfect man, Juliet, he said, voice low. But I love you in the only way I know how, fully, obsessively, stupidly. She looked at him, expression unreadable. And what happens when that love becomes suffocating? He swallowed. Then teach me how to breathe. Her heart stuttered. She turned back to the window, hiding the conflict in her eyes. Later that night, as they entered the villa, Sebastian went straight to his office. Juliet stood in the foyer alone, her heels in hand. She thought about Dominic's words, about Sebastian's grip, about her own feelings, caught somewhere between fear, nostalgia, and something dangerously close to love. She needed air. She walked barefoot to the pool, letting the silence wrap around her like a shawl. The moonlight shimmered on the water's surface, and she whispered to the wind, more to herself than anyone else. I'm not a prize. I'm not a pawn. I'm not his. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure who she was trying to convince. The next morning, the air inside the villa felt charged like a storm waiting to crack across the marble floors. Juliet Monroe sat cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through her phone. Her silk robe hung loosely around her frame, hair still tousled from sleep. Sebastian was across the room, already dressed in his usual crisp white shirt and slacks, typing furiously on his laptop. They hadn't spoken since the gala. Juliet had barely slept. Her mind had spun with Dominic's words, Sebastian's confessions, and her own sense of being trapped between two types of danger, one outside and one wearing a wedding ring. Her phone buzzed. Ethan Carter. She hesitated for a moment before answering. See, Ethan's voice came through, warm and familiar. I need your help. Please don't say no. Sebastian's head snapped up at the sound of the voice. Put it on speaker. Juliet gave him a sharp look. No. Why not? Because there's something called privacy, Sebastian. He stood. Not when it's him. Juliet ignored him. Ethan, I'm listening. What's going on? Ethan sounded breathless. My lead model cancelled last minute. The shoot is today bridal theme, massive brand. I need someone I trust, someone who can look stunning in a wedding dress. You're the only one who can save it. Juliet paused.
You're serious? I wouldn't ask if it weren't important. You'd be doing me a massive favor. Sebastian walked across the room and snatched the phone from her hand, pressing speaker. Ethan, he said, his voice dangerously calm. You want my wife to play pretend with another man in a tuxedo? Easy, Vance, Ethan fired back. It's professional. She's doing it for me. That's not better. Juliet stood up. Give me my phone. Sebastian ignored her. You know damn well what this'll look like. Photos? Internet. You just want to make me look like a joke. You're doing that all on your own, Ethan snapped. Juliet's helping because she still remembers who she is outside your shadow. Juliet took the phone back. I'm doing it. Sebastian turned to her, stunned. You didn't even ask me. She crossed her arms. I don't need permission. You're my wife. I'm a woman, Sebastian. One who made a decision. He followed her to the walk-in closet as she changed. You think I'll let this happen? You can't stop it, she replied. He leaned against the doorframe. All our cars are out for service. You're not going anywhere. She slipped on jeans. There's something called a cab. They're on strike today. She paused. I can walk. Sebastian laughed coldly. You'll walk? In those shoes? Juliet turned slowly. Perks of growing up in a middle-class family. I know how to move when the world doesn't wait for me. He didn't reply. She grabbed her purse and walked out barefoot. 10 minutes later, Sebastian sat restlessly in his office, staring at his screen but reading nothing. His mind kept flashing to the image of her in a white gown, smiling at someone else. Then it hit him. Cab strike. She really was walking. He bolted upright, grabbed his motorcycle helmet and tore out of the house. Juliet didn't hear the bike pull up behind her. She was too focused on navigating the cracked sidewalks in borrowed sneakers. A hand grabbed her arm. She spun and punched hard right into the chest of the stranger. Ow! Sebastian doubled over. Juliet gasped. You lunatic! I could have broken your rib. He removed the helmet. Surprise. She glared. You followed me. I wasn't going to let you get jumped on the side of the road. I can take care of myself. You're doing a great job, especially the punching part. She turned away. I don't need you to rescue me. Sebastian's voice dropped. I know. Juliet paused. He continued, softer this time. But I need to be there, even when I don't know how. She exhaled. Then stop trying to control everything. Start listening. After a beat, he held out the helmet. Come on, I'll take you. They rode in silence. When they arrived at the studio, Juliet dismounted, straightening her jacket. She expected Sebastian to leave. He didn't. You're going back, she said. Nope. She narrowed her eyes. Why? What if you need help? Sebastian, I'll sit in the back. Be quiet, I promise. Before she could protest, the studio door opened and Ethan came running. See, he shouted, hugging her tight. You have no idea how much this means. Sebastian's jaw ticked as he watched Ethan cup Juliet's face like she was his muse. I love your heart, Ethan said. Sebastian stepped forward. Excuse me? Ethan cleared his throat. I meant, she's generous, helpful. Sebastian didn't respond. He just glared. Juliet noticed. Sebastian, go. No. Then behave. The photo shoot began. Juliet stepped out of the dressing room wearing a wedding gown lace, fitted, breathtaking. Sebastian's breath caught, not because of the dress, because he hadn't seen her look that at peace in months. She smiled not at him, at her reflection. And it hit him. She didn't need to be owned. She needed to be free and still chosen. As the male model walked toward her, Sebastian shot up from his chair. Stop. Ethan turned. What now? Sebastian walked toward the set. Change of plan. Ethan narrowed his eyes. What plan? I'm the groom. Sebastian said. Juliet blinked. What? Sebastian turned to her. If there's going to be a man beside you in a wedding photo, it's going to be me. Ethan threw up his hands. Unbelievable. Deal with it, Sebastian replied. Juliet stared at him. He met her eyes, and for once, there was no challenge, just a quiet plea. Let me be the one beside you, even if it's just for pretend. And just like that, the power shifted. This time, Juliet was the one who allowed it. Not because she was claimed, but because, for the first time, he had asked. The studio buzzed with energy. Cameras clicked. Stylists darted in and out. The assistant director shouted instructions from behind a giant white reflector. But Juliet Monroe heard none of it. She stood still, bathed in soft light, watching Sebastian Vance walk toward her in a tailored groom's suit, not the one he wore to board meetings or press conferences, but something lighter, more vulnerable. The kind of thing a man wears when he wants to be seen, not just admired. He stopped 2 feet away, staring. She blinked up at him. You're really doing this? Sebastian nodded. If someone's going to stand beside you in a wedding photo, it should be your actual husband. Juliet tilted her head. Even if the marriage is still half pretend? He didn't flinch. I'm trying to fix that. Positions, the photographer called out. Juliet hesitated before moving. She adjusted the lace hem of the gown, let the veil fall naturally, and walked to her mark. Sebastian followed, standing beside her. Closer, the assistant director said. Sebastian stepped in, placing a hand gently on Juliet's waist. Their bodies touched just enough. Juliet's breath caught. She looked up. Too close? He asked quietly. No, she replied. Not close enough. A faint smile tugged at his lips. The camera clicked. The photographer circled them like a hawk, barking instructions. Now Juliet, hands on his chest. Good. Sebastian, look at her like she just said yes again. He didn't have to fake it. The way he looked at her, it silenced the room. Okay, the director called out. Let's do a few kneeling shots. Juliet's eyes widened. Excuse me? Kneel, Sebastian, the photographer instructed, holding up a reference photo. Let's recreate the proposal moment. Sebastian's face darkened. That won't be necessary. Juliet laughed softly. What? Afraid of your knees giving out? I don't kneel. Ever? He shook his head. Not for anyone. Then maybe, she said, eyes locking with his. You've never loved anyone enough. The room fell silent. Sebastian's jaw clenched. Then without a word, he dropped to one knee. Gasps filled the room. Cameras stopped clicking. Sebastian took Juliet's hand. You once told me I only take, never ask, he said softly. So I'm asking now. Will you let me try again? Juliet's throat tightened. This wasn't a photo shoot anymore. This was a moment. Unrehearsed, unscripted, real. She nodded, and as the ring, a prop, yet suddenly meaningful, slid onto her finger, she smiled. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't being pulled into love. She was walking into it. The rest of the session passed in a dream. The forehead kisses. The hand-holding. The way Sebastian tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, like he'd been waiting his whole life to do it right. The final shot was a kiss. Make it soft, the photographer instructed. Intimate, like it's just the two of you in the world. And in that moment, it was. Their lips met, hesitant at first, then deeper, not hungry, not possessive. Just tender. Sebastian pulled back first. His hand cupped her cheek. You look like you belong in white. She smiled. That's funny. I never pictured myself as a bride. I did, he said. Long before the contract. Juliet blinked. What? He looked away. Doesn't matter. She touched his jaw. Say it. He met her gaze again. I knew. Even when we were kids.
Even when you built that mud house and told Ethan you wanted to live quietly someday. I knew I was too much, too loud, too proud, but I always wanted to be the one you chose. Her heart ached at the honesty in his voice. And I kept taking, he added, softer now. Because I thought if I had you physically, legally, publicly, I wouldn't have to face the fact that maybe you'd never actually choose me. Juliet swallowed hard. But I did. You stayed. That's not the same. I stayed, she said, voice trembling, because you never stopped fighting for me. Even when you did it the wrong way. After the shoot, they changed back into regular clothes. Sebastian carried the wedding dress bag like it was made of glass. In the hallway, Ethan waited, phone in hand. You too, he said, shaking his head. You're going to break the internet. Juliet chuckled. Was I that good? You were dangerous, Ethan grinned. Then he looked at Sebastian. Never thought I'd see the day. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. The kneeling? Ethan nodded. The surrender. Sebastian smirked. It wasn't surrender. Juliet stepped between them. No. It was finally letting go of the war. Back in the car, silence sat between them again, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was full, peaceful. Juliet rested her head on the seat, turning slightly to face him. I've never had a day like today, she admitted. He glanced over. Good or bad? Both. Beautifully chaotic. Sebastian reached for her hand. Would you let me give you more of those? She smiled. Ask again, properly, maybe with a real ring next time. I'm not letting go, he said quietly. I know, she replied, but now you're holding me the right way. And outside, the city blurred past them, the past behind, the next chapter waiting. Together, the rain started around midnight. It wasn't violent, just soft enough to make the windows fog and the world outside seem like a distant memory. Juliet Monroe stood at the edge of the balcony, arms wrapped around herself, watching droplets trail down the glass like slow-moving tears. Behind her, Sebastian Vance leaned against the doorway, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. Not wine, not whiskey. Cocoa, something gentle, something new. You look cold, he said. She turned slightly, taking in the warmth in his voice, not the demanding CEO tone, not the clipped, transactional version she'd married. This one was just Sebastian, the boy from the lake, the one who crushed her mud house, yes, but also the one who never stopped watching her, never stopped wanting to belong. She walked back inside. He handed her the mug. Their fingers brushed. She didn't pull away. They sat on the couch in silence, the only sound being rain and the low hum of a jazz record spinning somewhere in the corner. I didn't want to feel anything at first, Juliet said. Sebastian looked at her. This marriage was supposed to be about survival, she continued. Stability. Not love, not pain. And now? Now, she whispered, I feel everything. He set down his mug. Tell me. Juliet hesitated. I'm scared that if I fall, you'll stop catching me, that you'll go back to being the man who takes. I'm scared too, Sebastian replied. She turned toward him, surprised. He met her eyes. That one day you'll wake up and realize you deserve someone softer, someone who didn't break you before he tried to love you. Her lip trembled. Why now, Sebastian? Why only now do you say these things? He exhaled. Because I finally realized possession isn't love. Power isn't love. You taught me that every time you stayed when I didn't deserve it, and every time you walked away when I tried to buy your silence. Juliet reached out, touching his face gently. You're not the only one who's changed. Sebastian caught her hand, holding it against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, grounded. You always saw me, didn't you? She asked. From the moment you built that stupid mud house.
She laughed through a tear. It wasn't that stupid. It was perfect, he whispered. Just like this. The moment unraveled slowly.
There were no sudden kisses, no dramatic declarations, just two people broken, healing, hoping finding each other again in the quiet.
Juliet leaned in, pressing her forehead to his. If I say I want more than this contract, more than this house, more than photos, would you give it to me?
I'll give you everything, he said, voice raw. No conditions.
No rules, just me? She smiled. Then you better kiss me like it's not borrowed time. He did.
And it wasn't. Later, they lay in bed, not tangled, not rushing, just present. Sebastian traced gentle circles along her shoulder. What do we do after this? We wake up, Juliet replied, and we stop pretending we're strangers living in the same castle. You'll stay? I'll stay, she said, but not because I owe you, not because of the contract, because for once, I choose to. He kissed her shoulder, a reverence in the gesture that words could never match. Outside, the rain softened into a hush. Inside, the war was over, but peace always comes with a cost. And as dawn broke, a new storm waited on the horizon, one that would test the very foundation of everything they'd rebuilt. Because just as Juliet found the courage to love again, someone from the past would return, carrying secrets that could shatter it all. But tonight was just theirs. Theirs to remember. Theirs to hold. Theirs to believe in, no matter what came next. Juliet Monroe woke to the sound of the front gates opening not gently, but with force. The kind that made walls vibrate. She sat up in bed, heart suddenly alert. Sebastian was already halfway out of the bedroom, shirt half buttoned, phone buzzing in his hand. Something's wrong, he muttered. Downstairs, the security system flashed red. Someone had bypassed the guest approval list. Juliet followed him barefoot, adrenaline rising. When they reached the foyer, the butler looked pale. Sir, there's a man at the door. Says he's your brother. Juliet froze. Sebastian went still. I don't have a brother, he said slowly. But when the door swung open, the man standing on the marble steps, windswept, eyes ice cold, looked exactly like Sebastian, only harder, sharper. With a smile that could slice skin. Hello, little brother, the man said. Miss me. His name was Dominic Whitmore. Illegitimate son of Sebastian's father. A secret child born of betrayal, raised in shadows, and discarded like a stain. No money, no name, no future, until now. Dominic didn't come for revenge. He came for what he said was his. I want my share, he told Sebastian calmly, seated in the grand parlor, like he belonged. And if you don't give it to me, I'll give Juliet everything I know. Juliet's voice cut the tension. What are you talking about? Dominic turned to her. Did he tell you how your father went bankrupt? Juliet blinked. What? Sebastian stood. Don't. But Dominic continued. Your dad, Harold Monroe, he was a brilliant builder and a horrible negotiator. The company that crushed him? The one that left your family homeless? He smiled coldly. Vance Holdings. Juliet couldn't breathe. Sebastian reached for her, but she stepped back. Tell me he's lying. Sebastian's face was ghost pale. It was years ago. Before I had control, my father made that deal. But you didn't undo it, she whispered. I couldn't. You didn't. Her voice cracked. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of what happened, but because he never told her. Through every conversation about rebuilding her life, he knew and said nothing. Dominic leaned back, watching the implosion with satisfaction. Funny how silence can destroy louder than bombs. Juliet turned to him, eyes burning.
You came here to hurt me, not just him. I came to remind you, Dominic replied, that love built on lies isn't love, it's manipulation. Juliet didn't answer. She just walked out the front door barefoot, broken, and done pretending everything could be perfect. Sebastian didn't follow her. For once he knew he wasn't the hero in this moment. He was the man who made all the wrong choices and might lose the only thing he ever did right. Hours passed. Rain came again. When night fell, Sebastian was still sitting on the floor of their bedroom, eyes fixed on the ring box he once held behind his back the day she moved in. He never opened it. Not really. Until now. He stood and walked out. Juliet was at the lake. The same one from their childhood. The same one where she built the mud house and he stomped through it like a careless boy. Only now, she wasn't the girl who cried. She was a woman who had learned how to stand. You found me, she said without turning. I never stopped looking, he replied. She turned slowly. Do you regret it? Sebastian nodded. Every second I stayed silent. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared that if you knew, you'd never see me, only the legacy that hurt you. She crossed her arms. And now? Now, he said, stepping closer, I know that if I lose you because I told the truth, it's still better than keeping you under a lie. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, not massive, not flashy, just honest. Simple, like the love he should have offered from the start. I'm not asking you to forget, Sebastian said, voice raw. Or to forgive right away. I'm asking you to believe that I'm trying, not to be perfect, just better. Juliet stared at the ring, then up at him. Her eyes shimmered. I don't need perfect. I just need real. He dropped to his knees, again. No cameras, no contracts, no pride. Just love. And this time she knelt too. They held each other for a long time as the wind moved gently around them. The lake quiet. The past forgiven. The future uncertain. But theirs. Because love the real kind isn't loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't demand. It stays, even when everything else falls apart. In life, love isn't always about grand gestures or perfect timing sometimes. It's about the quiet moments where we choose to stay, even when it's hard. Juliet and Sebastian's story reminds us that healing often begins when truth replaces pride, and when forgiveness outweighs fear. Many older Americans have lived through marriages built on silence, survival, or sacrifice. But this story offers something more. Hope that even in later chapters of life, love can still grow honestly, gently, and without condition. It's never too late to say, I'm sorry. Never too late to kneel, not in weakness, but in humility. And never too late to choose someone again, not because you need them, but because you want them beside you in truth. Like Juliet, we all carry pieces of a past we didn't choose. Like Sebastian, we've all made mistakes we wish we could take back. But redemption doesn't come from erasing history. It comes from having the courage to face it and still love forward. Because in the end, the most powerful love story isn't the one we read. It's the one we choose to live every day, with open eyes and a humble heart.